Hello. Good day, sir. How are you doing?
Her hands moved before her mind caught up with what she was doing. Maya Chen pressed her palms together, then opened them outward, the universal sign for hello. And the moment her fingers stopped moving, a flood of relief washed across the face of the man standing at the reception desk. He was middle-aged, well-dressed, and had been standing there for nearly 4 minutes while 3 different members of staff walked past him without making eye contact. His hearing aids were visible just above his collar line. The notepad he had pulled from his jacket pocket, the one he clearly intended to write on, was still folded shut in his hand because nobody had paused long enough to even register that he needed help. Maya had paused. She was 23 years old, 2 months into her internship at Caldera Group, a mid-sized consulting firm on the 14th floor of a glass building downtown. She had a desk near the back wall, far enough from the good windows that she had to stand up to see if it was raining outside. She made coffee runs nobody asked her to make, attended meetings she was never invited to speak in, and had once emailed a market analysis to her supervisor that was so thorough and precise that he presented it at a board meeting the following Tuesday without crediting her name once. Maya was, by every measurable standard, invisible. But right now, she was not invisible. Right now, she was standing at the front reception desk of Caldera Group, signing to a man nobody else had noticed, and for reasons she could not fully explain, her heart was hammering. She had learned sign language at 16 because of her younger brother Daniel, who had lost most of his hearing after a viral infection the summer before their mother's second wedding. The doctors had called it sudden sensorineural hearing loss. Their mother had cried for 3 days. Daniel had learned to sign in 4 months. Maya had learned alongside him because she refused, absolutely refused, to let her brother feel alone in a room full of people who loved him but could not reach him. That feeling, the feeling of watching someone exist in a crowd without being reached, was the feeling she recognized on the face of the man at the reception desk. That was why her hands had moved before her mind gave them permission. She signed, "Can I help you?" His eyes lit up. He signed back quickly, his fingers practiced and fluid. He was there for a 10 o'clock meeting with someone in the acquisitions department. He had checked in twice at the front desk. Both times the receptionist had smiled politely, pointed to a chair, and returned to her screen. Maya nodded. She held up one finger, wait, then walked directly to the reception desk. "He's here for a 10 o'clock in acquisitions," she said to the receptionist, a woman named Priya who was technically senior to Maya and never let that fact go unacknowledged. "His name is—" She turned back and signed the question. He signed his name with a name sign first, then spelled it Robertkain. "Robert Kane," Maya told Priya. Priya looked at Maya the way people look at a child who has wandered into the wrong room. "I was handling it," she said flatly. "He's been standing there for 4 minutes," Maya replied, keeping her voice low. Priya's jaw tightened. She typed the name into her system, confirmed the appointment, and picked up her phone to call upstairs without another word. Maya turned back to Robert and signed that someone would be down shortly and that he was welcome to take a seat. He smiled, a real smile, the kind that changes the entire shape of a face, and signed thank you with both hands pressed to his chin, then released them outward toward her. Maya signed back, "You're welcome. I hope the meeting goes well." He looked at her for a moment, something genuine crossing his expression, and nodded. She turned to walk back to her desk and nearly collided with a man standing 3 feet behind her. She stepped back, startled. He was tall, perhaps late 50s, with silver hair that had been allowed to go mostly its own way. He wore a dark suit that fit with the quiet precision of something that did not need to announce itself. He was holding a coffee cup, and he had clearly been standing there long enough to witness the entire exchange from beginning to end. "Sorry," Maya said, automatically stepping to the side. The man said nothing. He looked at her for exactly 2 seconds, a look that was not unkind, not warm, simply deeply attentive. And then he walked toward the elevator bank. Maya had no idea who he was. She went back to her desk, sat down, and told herself the encounter meant nothing. She was wrong. If you are watching this for the first time, stay with us, because what happens next is the part nobody sees coming. And if you have been here before, you already know. The most important moments on this channel always start exactly like this one did. 3 weeks before that morning, Maya had accepted the Caldera internship with one specific hope, that it would prove something, not to anyone else. She had stopped needing other people's validation somewhere around age 19. She wanted to prove it to herself. She had a business degree from a good university, a GPA that spoke for itself, a mind that processed faster than she typically allowed to show, and a quiet, persistent suspicion that the reason she had never advanced anywhere was not lack of ability, but the way she carried herself, as though confidence were a language she had been taught by textbook and still could not quite speak without an accent. Quiet people, her mother often said, are mistaken for empty people. Her supervisor at Caldera was a man named Derek Walsh. Derek was 34, aggressively networked, and had a handshake that felt like a negotiation opening. He wore slim-cut suits, scheduled standing meetings in the hallway because he had read somewhere that standing improved executive decision-making, and liked Maya's work the way people like tools, useful, appreciated, not thought about much once they've done their job. "You are a strong contributor," Derek had told her in her 30-day review, which he conducted while they both stood next to the printer. "Thank you," she said. "Just speak up more in meetings. You have to make yourself visible." She had nodded. She had thought, "I handed you a 40-page market analysis last week and you presented it as your own." She had not said that aloud. That was the problem with being invisible. After long enough, you start enforcing it yourself. The 2 co-workers she interacted with most were Priya and a man named Garrett, who sat 2 desks over and had a particular talent for making every conversation feel like an audition he was already winning. Garrett had been at Caldera for 8 months, which made him, in his own estimation, something of a veteran. He was the kind of person who laughed at the wrong moments in meetings and somehow escaped consequence, because he was confident and polished, and wore both qualities like a license. On the morning Robert Kane came in, Garrett had been standing near the reception area too. He had watched the whole thing, Maya signing, the man's visible relief, the brief exchange, and when Maya walked back past his desk, he said, without looking up from his screen, "Do you do parties too, like entertainment stuff?" Maya did not respond. Priya, from across the open floor, added, "It was unnecessary. I had it under control." Maya sat down, opened her laptop, and started working. The rest of that day moved the way most days at Caldera moved. Fast for everyone else, slow for her. There was a team meeting at 11 where Derek walked through a client strategy that incorporated 2 ideas, directly lifted from a memo Maya had submitted 3 days prior. Her name did not appear once in the slide deck. A lunch order at 12:30 came back wrong, hers specifically. At 2 in the afternoon, she was asked to reformat a spreadsheet that had already been formatted correctly. By 4 o'clock, she had convinced herself the morning was gone. Absorbed into the background static of another overlooked day, she was shutting down her laptop at 5:45 when her phone buzzed with an internal message from Derek's assistant. It read, "Maya Chen, please report to the executive conference room on the 16th floor tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Mr. Walsh will not be present. Please do not discuss this with colleagues." Maya read the message, 3 times. Her first thought, I am being fired. Her second thought, did the Robert Kane thing cross a line? Was Priya right? Was I overstepping? Her third thought, arriving slowly and settling heavily. The 16th floor. She had never been to the 16th floor. That was where senior partners kept their offices, where Caldera Group's executive leadership operated, and Derek would not be present, which meant whatever was happening was above him, which meant it was serious in one of 2 very different directions. She went home. She ate poorly. She did not sleep well. She arrived at the 16th floor at 8:57 the following morning. The elevator opened onto a reception area that was noticeably quieter than the floors below. The carpet was a deeper shade. The furniture was real wood. A woman behind a curved desk smiled at Maya with the specific warmth of someone who already knows how the story ends. Maya Chen, the woman said. Yes, they are ready for you. Conference room B, just down the hall to your left. They, the word landed in Maya's stomach with a weight she could not immediately name. Not he, not she, they, multiple people, waiting for her. She walked down the hallway. The carpet absorbed her footsteps entirely, and she noticed, in a distant way, that this was what it felt like to walk toward something that mattered. She passed a framed photograph of the founding partners, a watercolor landscape, a single closed door behind which she could hear the low murmur of voices. She stopped outside conference room B. She pressed one hand flat against her jacket and felt her own heartbeat through the fabric. She breathed in. She opened the door. 2 people sat at the far side of the table. One was a woman she did not recognize. Early 60s, a dark blazer, the posture of someone who had spent decades being the most prepared person in the room. The other was the man with the silver hair, the man who had been standing behind her with a coffee cup yesterday morning. Maya stood in the doorway. Please come in, the woman said. Close the door. Maya came in, closed the door, sat in the chair opposite them, and folded her hands on the table, needing something to do with them. The man with the silver hair had not spoken yet. He was watching her the same way he had watched her yesterday, not unkindly, not warmly, simply with total attention, as though he was reading something written in a language most people never learned. The woman spoke first. Maya, my name is Sandra Ose. I am the Chief Operating Officer of Caldera Group. She gestured beside her. And this is James Caldera. The room did a slow rotation. James Caldera, the founder, the man whose name was on the building, the man who had, by every account Maya had heard, in 2 months of passing conversations, stepped back from day-to-day operations following a health event several years ago, leaving the firm's management to people like Sandra Ose, and far below her, people like Derek Walsh. James Caldera was the man with the coffee cup. James Caldera had watched her sign to Robert Kane. I imagine, James said, and his voice was quieter than she expected, each word set down with deliberate care, that you have spent some time since yesterday wondering why you are here. Yes, Maya said. It was the only word she trusted. Robert Kane called me last night, he said. She waited. Robert is an old friend. We attended university together 40 years ago. He has been advising a confidential project we have been developing for the past 6 months. He paused, in no hurry. He told me what happened in the lobby. He wanted me to know. Maya said, carefully, I was just helping. I know, James said. That is precisely the point. He leaned forward slightly. I have spent the last 2 weeks in this building, not as the founder, or rather as myself, but not announced as such, just as a man moving through the floors, watching. I do this occasionally when I want to understand the real version of this company, as opposed to the version that exists in performance reviews and quarterly reports and the things people do when they believe they are being evaluated. He paused. I wanted to see what Caldera looked like when it thought no one important was watching. Sandra Osei opened a folder and slid a single document across the table toward Maya. Maya did not look at it yet. She kept her eyes on James. There were things I observed in those 2 weeks that concerned me deeply, James continued. A culture that had become efficient in all the wrong ways. People extraordinarily skilled at appearing to contribute. People extraordinarily skilled at absorbing credit that did not belong to them. And a smaller number of people doing the actual original work and receiving almost nothing for it. He met her eyes steadily. I noticed you in your first week. Maya did not move. I watched you hand a completed analysis to your supervisor, he said. I watched him accept it without a word of acknowledgement. I watched you say nothing and return to your desk. He said it without judgment, only with the weight of having seen it clearly. I also watched you form thoughts in meetings and swallow them before they reached your voice. I watched you redo work that was already correct because someone louder declared it wrong. And then yesterday, I watched you cross a lobby to help a man that 3 people had decided to ignore. The room was absolutely still. Everyone in this building possesses skills, James Caldera said. Most of the people on your floor are technically competent. Several are genuinely talented. But in 2 weeks of watching this company, you were the only person I saw choose kindness when it cost something. Because it did cost you something, didn't it? Priya's irritation, a colleague's contempt, the small social tax that comes from caring visibly in a place that rewards performance over substance. Maya felt the back of her throat tighten in the specific way that has nothing to do with sadness and everything to do with being accurately seen for the first time in a long while. You knew sign language, James said, and you used it. Why? Maya answered without hesitating. Because he needed someone too. And I could. James was quiet. Then he said, My daughter is deaf. She has been since birth. He did not look away. She is 28 years old and runs a nonprofit operating across 3 cities. She is, without question, the most remarkable person I have ever known. And she has spent her entire life in spaces where people looked directly at her and somehow failed to see her because they did not know how to look at her. He paused. Robert Kane has known her since she was a small child. When he called me last night, he was not calling to report an incident. He called because he told me, and I am quoting him exactly, he said, There is a young woman at your company who made me feel like I was worth pausing for. I thought you should know she works for you. Maya's hands on the table were very still. Sandra Osei spoke. Maya, we are offering you a newly created position, Senior Associate Culture and Talent Development. The role is attached directly to the executive team. It focuses on how we build internal culture, how we identify and develop overlooked talent, and how we reshape the way this company treats the people who are doing its real work. She nodded toward the document she had slid across the table. The compensation represents a significant step up from your current stipend. The role is full-time and permanent, effective immediately. Maya looked at the paper, read the number, looked back up. Why me? She asked. I am an intern. I have been here 2 months. James Caldera said, because the people who build the best cultures are almost always the ones who have personally felt the cost of a broken one. And because I have spent 2 weeks watching people in this building perform competence with remarkable skill, and one morning watching you perform humanity, the second is substantially harder to teach. He folded his hands on the table. There is also a practical matter. Robert's project involves expanding Caldera into accessibility consulting. We need people who understand that world not theoretically but personally. People who have already chosen, without any instruction, without any reward, to bridge the space between those who are seen and those who are not. Maya sat with it. She thought of Daniel, of the summer he went quiet, of the months of learning a new language because she refused to let him go unreached. She thought of Derek presenting her work without her name. She thought of Garrett's smirk and Priya's dismissal. And every morning she had ridden the elevator to the 14th floor and told herself it was temporary, it would change, keep going. She thought of Robert Kane's face when her hands opened toward him. "Yes," she said, "I accept." James Caldera nodded once. Slowly, in the manner of a man who had already suspected the answer, but needed to hear it spoken aloud to make it real. The news reached the 14th floor at 11:15 that morning. Derek Walsh heard it from Sandra Osie's assistant and sat at his desk for a full 4 minutes without speaking. His intern, the quiet one, the one who formatted spreadsheets and took wrong lunch orders and wrote the analysis he had presented as his own, had been elevated above him to a role that reported directly to the executive team. Garrett heard it from Priya, who had heard it first and was processing it in a way that sat uncomfortably in her chest. His response was a short, disbelieving laugh, and then, "The signing thing, that's actually what did it." Priya said nothing. She had known, even in the moment, that she had not handled it. She had been ignoring a situation and calling that management. The distinction she now understood had not gone unnoticed by anyone who had been paying real attention. The floor rearranged itself the way floors do when the accepted order is disrupted, quietly, uncomfortably, with a great deal of people suddenly aware that they had spent 2 months looking past someone without realizing it. The awareness was not pleasant. They sat with it anyway because there was no comfortable way around it. Derek, for his part, never acknowledged it to Maya directly. He did not apologize. He did not reference the analysis. But twice over the following week, when someone interrupted Maya in a meeting, Derek said, "Let her finish." Maya did not thank him for it, but she noticed. Growth, even belated, was still growth. Maya spent the afternoon in a handover meeting on the 16th floor at a table with people who addressed her by name and asked for her perspective and waited, genuinely waited, until she finished speaking before responding. It was so simple a thing, it felt enormous. She called Daniel on her way home. "Danny," she said, "something happened today." "Good or bad?" he asked immediately. "Good," she said, "really good." "Tell me everything." So she did. She stood on the pavement outside the building as the evening commute moved around her in every direction and told him the whole story. The man at the desk, the signing, the silver-haired man with the coffee cup, the conference room on the 16th floor, the offer, the number on the paper. When she finished, there was a silence. "Maya," Daniel said quietly, "you know what you actually did, right?" "I said hello to someone." "No," he said, "you saw someone. Those are completely different things. Most people look. You actually saw." She stood on the pavement and let that settle. "You taught me that," she said quietly. He laughed. "I didn't teach you anything. That was already in you." 2 months later, Maya stood at the head of the executive conference room on the 16th floor and presented her first initiative, a full internal audit of how Caldera Group attributed intellectual contributions, whose names appeared on deliverables, whose voices were amplified in meetings, whose work traveled upward under someone else's name. She called it the Visibility Report, and she delivered it standing, without notes, at a pace she had spent years learning to slow down enough to be heard. The room was quiet when she finished. Not the uncomfortable quiet of a poor presentation, but the specific silence of people encountering something that has rearranged a small piece of how they understand a thing. James Caldera, at the far end of the table, said simply, "How do we start?" Maya said, "You already have." 3 months after that, the first accessibility consulting division launched, with Robert Kane as senior advisor and Maya Chen as internal liaison. On the day of the announcement, Robert walked through the glass doors of Caldera Group, and Priya, who had spent the intervening weeks in an online sign language course she told no one about, stood up from her desk and signed, carefully and imperfectly but unmistakably, "Welcome back." He smiled, the smile that changed the shape of his whole face. He signed, "Thank you." Maya, watching from across the lobby, felt something settle in her that had been off balance for longer than she could clearly remember. She noticed a new junior employee standing near the printer, fresh badge on her jacket, trying to figure out the paper tray without asking for help because she felt too new to ask anyone for anything. She had the tight, careful posture of someone trying not to take up too much space. Maya recognized it immediately. She had worn it herself for years. Maya walked over. "First week?" she said. The woman looked up, caught. "Is it that obvious?" "Not really," Maya said honestly. "You just have the look of someone who knows what they're doing but isn't sure yet if anyone will let them prove it." The woman laughed, surprised by the accuracy of it. "Give it time," Maya said. "And one more thing. If you produce work worth showing, put your name on it. Every single time. It matters more than you think." The woman nodded, uncertain but grateful. Maya walked back across the lobby. Kindness does not make noise. It does not announce itself or keep score or hold off until it knows a reward is coming. It moves quietly through rooms and hallways and lobbies and morning coffee runs. It shows up in the hands of a 23-year-old intern who once decided, without calculating the cost, that a man standing at a reception desk deserved to be seen. But here is what kindness does, quietly, without ever raising its voice. It changes everything it touches, and the things it touches go on touching other things, and no room it passes through is ever quite the same after it has been there. Some tests do not come with advance notice. Some of them do not announce themselves as tests at all. They arrive dressed as ordinary moments, a stranger at a desk, a choice that seems small, and they wait to see what you will do. Maya Chen said hello, and it changed everything. If this story stayed with you, share it with one person who needs to hear it. And if you are new to this channel, this is what we do here. Real stories of people. Subscribe right now so you never miss what we put out next. Tell us in the comments, what would you have done in Maya's place? We read every single response, and if this moved you even a little, hit that like button. See you in the next one.